The ivory silk slipped through my fingers like liquid moonlight, each delicate pearl sewn by hand catching the boutique's soft lighting. I had dreamed of this moment for months, finding the perfect wedding dress for my October ceremony. After visiting 17 boutiques across the city, this Vera Wang masterpiece was everything I had envisioned. Elegant, timeless, and uniquely me. It's absolutely stunning on you, Miss Chen, the boutique owner, Mrs. Pemberton, said as I stood before the three-way mirror. The dress hugged my petite frame perfectly, the intricate beadwork cascading down the bodice like captured starlight. This is actually our last piece from this collection. It was a sample that came in your exact size. My heart swelled with joy. After 3 years of dating, David had finally proposed during our weekend getaway to Napa Valley. Everything was falling into place for our dream wedding at the Rosewood Manor, the venue I had bookmarked since college, the photographer whose work had inspired countless Pinterest boards, and now this dress that made me feel like a princess. According to YouTube analytics, 99% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. I'll take it, I said without hesitation, my voice trembling with excitement. Mrs. Pemberton smiled warmly. Wonderful choice, dear. We'll need a deposit today, and the final fitting can be scheduled for 2 weeks before your wedding. I handed over my credit card, my hands shaking slightly. This purchase represented months of saving, working extra shifts at the marketing firm, and carefully budgeting every expense. But seeing myself in this dress, I knew every sacrifice had been worth it. Mia! I turned to see my best friend since childhood, Rebecca, rushing toward me with her phone raised, snapping photos. Her blonde hair bounced with each step, her designer handbag swinging from her shoulder. Rebecca had always been the more glamorous one between us, the one who effortlessly turned heads, who dated the quarterback in high school while I tutored students in math, who landed the coveted internship at her father's investment firm while I worked my way up from entry-level positions. "Oh my God, you look absolutely divine," Rebecca gushed, circling around me like a fashion photographer. "This dress is incredible. It's so you, but also so much more elegant than I expected you to choose." I chose to ignore the backhanded nature of her comment, focusing instead on her enthusiasm. Rebecca had been my maid of honor since the moment David proposed. Despite our friendship having grown somewhat strained over the years, there were moments when her competitiveness felt overwhelming, but I attributed it to her type A personality and the pressure she faced in her high-powered finance job. "Isn't it perfect?" I twirled slightly, watching the skirt flutter around my ankles. "I can't believe I found it. Mrs. Pemberton says it's the last one in this size." "It really is stunning," Rebecca said, her eyes fixed on the dress with an intensity that made me slightly uncomfortable. "How much did it cost?" "It's definitely an investment," I laughed nervously, not wanting to reveal the exact amount. "But it's my wedding dress. Some things are worth splurging on." Rebecca nodded slowly, her fingers reaching out to touch the delicate beadwork. "The craftsmanship is incredible. And this shade of ivory is so unique. It's almost champagne tinted. I've never seen anything quite like it." After completing the paperwork and scheduling my fitting, Rebecca and I headed to lunch at our favorite cafe downtown. Over Caesar salads and iced coffees, we discussed wedding planning details, the menu tasting scheduled for next week, the floral arrangements, the seating chart that was proving more complicated than anticipated. "I still can't believe you're getting married before me," Rebecca said, stabbing her lettuce with more force than necessary. "I mean, I'm genuinely happy for you, but it's so weird. I always pictured myself walking down the aisle first." "Your time will come," I assured her, though I noticed the slight edge in her voice. "Marcus seems pretty serious about you." "Marcus," she scoffed. "He's fine for now, but he's not exactly husband material. He's too focused on his art to think about settling down. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to date someone more established, more committed." Something about the way she said it made me glance up from my salad. But Rebecca was already changing the subject, asking about the bachelor and bachelorette party plans. Over the next few weeks, wedding preparations consumed my life. Between work deadlines and venue meetings, dress fittings and menu tastings, I barely had time to breathe. Rebecca had thrown herself into maid of honor duties with surprising enthusiasm, taking charge of the bachelorette party planning and helping coordinate with the other bridesmaids. It was during this whirlwind that I first noticed David seemed distracted. Our nightly phone calls grew shorter, and he canceled our Sunday brunch tradition twice in a row, citing work emergencies at his architectural firm. When I expressed concern, he brushed off my worries with assurances that he was just stressed about a major project deadline. All grooms get pre-wedding jitters, Rebecca assured me when I confided my concerns during our weekly coffee date. Marcus says David's been working crazy hours lately. You know how dedicated he is to his career. You've talked to Marcus about David? I asked, surprised. Oh, just in passing, Rebecca waved dismissively. You know how guys talk. But seriously, Mia, stop overthinking everything. David adores you. He's probably just overwhelmed with work stuff. I wanted to believe her, but something felt off. David had always been transparent with me about his projects, often seeking my input on design challenges or celebrating client victories together. This newfound secretiveness was unlike him. 2 weeks before the wedding, I arrived at the boutique for my final fitting, excited to see how the minor alterations had transformed the dress. Mrs. Pemberton greeted me with an expression I couldn't quite read, somewhere between confusion and discomfort. Miss Chen, she began carefully, I'm afraid there's been a rather unusual situation. My stomach dropped. Is something wrong with the dress? Well, that's just it. Mrs. Pemberton wrung her hands nervously. Your dress was picked up yesterday afternoon by someone claiming to be you. The world tilted slightly. What do you mean picked up by someone claiming to be me? A young woman came in with a copy of your receipt and identification that said Mia Chen. She knew all the details about your fitting appointment and claimed you had sent her to collect the dress due to a family emergency. My assistant, who hadn't met you personally, released the dress to her. My hands began to tremble. But I'm Mia Chen. I never sent anyone. What did this woman look like? Mrs. Pemberton's description sent ice through my veins. Blonde hair, designer handbag. About my height, but with a more confident bearing. She described Rebecca perfectly. I'm so sorry, Miss Chen. We've never had anything like this happen before. I've already contacted the police, and we're reviewing our security footage. We'll do everything we can to get your dress back. I stood in the boutique, still in my work clothes, staring at the empty garment bag that should have contained my dream dress. The betrayal felt like a physical blow to my chest, making it difficult to breathe. Rebecca, my best friend since childhood, my maid of honor, the person I had trusted with every wedding detail, had stolen my wedding dress. But why? The answer came 3 days later in the most devastating way possible. I was working late at the office, trying to distract myself from the dress situation by burying myself in a product launch campaign, when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Check Rebecca's Instagram story. I'm sorry you have to find out this way. Sarah. Sarah was one of my bridesmaids, Rebecca's coworker, who had always seemed slightly uncomfortable around her. With shaking hands, I opened Instagram and navigated to Rebecca's account. The story nearly made me drop my phone. There was Rebecca, radiant in my stolen wedding dress, standing beside David in what appeared to be a courthouse ceremony. The caption read, When you know, Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton, a leading runaway. Sorry, not sorry, sometimes love wins. David Hamilton, my fiancé, had married my best friend while wearing the dress I had saved for months to buy. The office walls seemed to close in around me as the full scope of their betrayal became clear. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. They had been planning this, coordinate their deception, while I planned a wedding that would never happen. Rebecca hadn't just stolen my dress. She had stolen my entire future. My phone rang immediately, David's contact photo, filling the screen. I stared at it, remembering when I had taken that photo during our weekend in Napa, right before he proposed. Or had that proposal been real either? I declined the call. Then came the flood of messages. From David, from Rebecca, from mutual friends who had seen the Instagram post. I turned off my phone and sat in the empty office, surrounded by the sound of my own heartbeat and the distant hum of the building's ventilation system. The next few days passed in a haze of canceled vendors, returned gifts, and uncomfortable conversations. The hardest part wasn't even losing David, though that pain was acute and constant. It was losing Rebecca, the person who had been my confidant, my supporter, my chosen sister for 23 years. When I finally answered David's calls, his explanations felt hollow and rehearsed. It just happened, Mia. I never meant for it to go this far, but Rebecca and I, We realized we had feelings for each other. It would have been wrong to go through with the wedding when my heart wasn't fully in it. So you decided to go through with a different wedding instead? I asked, my voice surprisingly calm. In my dress? That wasn't. Rebecca said you wouldn't want it back anyway, after everything. She thought it would be wasteful to let it go unused. The audacity of their justifications was almost impressive. They had convinced themselves that their betrayal was somehow a favor to me, that stealing my dress and my fiancé was an act of kindness that saved me from a loveless marriage. Rebecca's attempts at contact were even more infuriating. She sent long, rambling emails about following her heart, about how she had always loved David but had stepped aside for my happiness, about how she hoped I would understand and forgive her someday. She painted herself as the tragic heroine of a romance novel, star-crossed lovers finally finding their way to each other. Not once did either of them acknowledge the cruelty of their methods or the pain they had caused. I made a conscious decision not to seek revenge. The temptation was there. I knew enough about both of their professional lives to cause significant damage. I could have exposed Rebecca's questionable business practices to her superiors, or revealed David's tendency to inflate his qualifications to potential clients. I could have made their lives as miserable as they had made mine. Instead, I focused on rebuilding. I threw myself into work with renewed intensity, channeling my pain into creativity and productivity. The product launch campaign I had been working on became one of the most successful in company history. I started taking evening classes in digital marketing, expanding my skill set and preparing for future opportunities. I began therapy, working through the trauma of betrayal and learning to trust myself again. Most importantly, I pursued a dream I had always put on the back burner, starting my own event planning company. Having planned my own wedding so meticulously, I realized I had a talent for coordinating complex events. I began with small birthday parties and corporate gatherings, building a reputation for attention to detail and creative problem solving. Months passed. I heard through mutual friends that David and Rebecca's impromptu marriage was struggling. The passionate affair that had seemed worth destroying friendships for was proving difficult to sustain in the harsh light of reality. Rebecca had apparently expected David to be more financially successful than he actually was, while David was discovering that Rebecca's high-maintenance lifestyle and competitive nature were exhausting to live with daily. I felt no satisfaction in their struggles, only a distant sense of sadness for the people they had become. It was almost a year after the betrayal when karma began its work in earnest. I was attending a networking event for local businesses when I overheard a conversation between two women at the bar. "Did you hear about the boutique owner who's suing Rebecca Hamilton for fraud?" one asked. "The investment advisor? What did she do now?" Apparently, she used fake identification to steal a wedding dress worth thousands of dollars from some high-end boutique. The owner finally tracked her down through social media posts. Rebecca's claiming it was all a misunderstanding, but there's security footage of her using forged documents. My blood ran cold as I realized they were talking about my dress, my situation. Mrs. Pemberton had apparently continued her investigation and built a case against Rebecca. Over the following weeks, the story unfolded with devastating efficiency. Rebecca's theft of my dress had been captured on multiple security cameras, and her use of forged identification constituted identity fraud. When the boutique's lawyers began investigating, they discovered this wasn't Rebecca's first offense. She had a pattern of using deceptive practices in her professional life as well. The scandal exploded across our social circle and professional networks. Rebecca's investment firm launched their own investigation, uncovering evidence that she had been manipulating client accounts and inflating her performance numbers. David's architectural firm, already struggling with economic downturns, couldn't weather the negative publicity associated with their partner's wife's criminal activities. Meanwhile, my event planning business was thriving. Word of mouth had led to referrals for increasingly prestigious events, and I had recently been hired to plan a high-profile charity gala for the city's most influential philanthropic organization. The irony wasn't lost on me when the charity's board chair contacted me personally to discuss the event. "Miss Chen, we've heard wonderful things about your work, but I want to be completely transparent with you. This gala is extremely important to our organization, and we need absolute discretion and professionalism. We've had some unfortunate experiences with vendors who brought personal drama to our events." "Of course," I assured her. "What kind of concerns do you have?" Well, we had originally hired Hamilton and Associates for the venue design, but we've had to terminate that contract due to some personal issues involving Mr. Hamilton's wife. We're hoping you might have recommendations for alternative design services. My heart raced as I realized she was talking about David's firm. I'd be happy to provide some excellent referrals. May I ask what kind of design aesthetic you're looking for? As she described their vision, elegant, timeless, with subtle luxury touches, an idea began forming in my mind. Actually, I said carefully, I have a suggestion that might interest you. What if we themed the gala around the concept of transformation and new beginnings? I'm thinking about incorporating elements that represent overcoming adversity and emerging stronger. The board chair was intrigued, and we scheduled a meeting to discuss the concept further. 2 weeks later, I stood in my apartment, looking at the garment bag that had just been delivered. Inside was a gown more beautiful than anything I had ever owned, a custom-made creation by an up-and-coming designer who specialized in sustainable fashion. The dress was a masterpiece of midnight blue silk with hand-embroidered silver threads that created patterns reminiscent of constellations. It was elegant, powerful, and uniquely mine. This was the dress I would wear to the charity gala, the same gala where I would be publicly recognized as the event planner who had transformed their annual fundraiser into the most successful in the organization's history. The same gala where Rebecca and David would be in attendance, thanks to David's desperate attempts to salvage his professional reputation by purchasing expensive tickets to high-profile social events. The night of the gala, I arrived at the venue, the same Rosewood Manor where David and I were supposed to have been married, feeling more confident and self-assured than I ever had in my life. The transformation was complete. The space I had once envisioned for my wedding had become the stage for my professional triumph. As guests began arriving, I moved through the crowd with purpose, ensuring every detail was perfect. The evening was going flawlessly. The live auction was exceeding expectations, the dinner service was seamless, and the guest speakers were delivering powerful messages about resilience and renewal. I was checking with the photography team when I saw them. David looked older, more haggard than I remembered. His tuxedo was slightly ill-fitting, and there was a nervousness about his posture that suggested he was uncomfortable being there. Beside him, Rebecca wore a dress that was clearly expensive but somehow looked desperate. Too flashy, too attention-seeking for the elegant crowd. More jarring was how different she looked. The confidence that had always defined Rebecca seemed forced now, brittle. Her smile appeared painted on, and she kept glancing around the room as if expecting someone to confront her. They hadn't seen me yet, but I knew the moment was coming. I was speaking with the charity's major donors when Rebecca spotted me. I watched her face cycle through emotions: recognition, shock, fear, and finally a desperate attempt at bravado. She approached slowly, David trailing reluctantly behind her. "Mia," Rebecca said, her voice artificially bright. "What a surprise to see you here. You look different." "Hello, Rebecca." "David." I kept my voice professionally neutral, aware that other guests were within earshot. "I didn't realize you were involved with this charity," David said quietly, unable to meet my eyes. "I planned this event," I replied simply. "It's what I do now." The impact of those words was immediate. Rebecca's carefully composed expression cracked slightly as she realized the full scope of what she was seeing. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. I had built something beautiful from the ashes of what they had destroyed. That's wonderful," Rebecca stammered. "I always knew you were talented, but this is, impressive." Before I could respond, the charity's board chair approached our group with a warm smile. "Mia, there you are. I wanted to introduce you to some potential clients who have been asking about your services all evening." She paused, noticing David and Rebecca. "Oh, hello. Are you friends of Miss Chen's?" The silence stretched uncomfortably before I spoke. "We used to know each other." "Well, I hope you're as impressed as the rest of us with Mia's incredible work tonight. This woman is absolutely brilliant. She's transformed our little fundraiser into what I'm confident will be the social event of the season. We've already raised twice as much as last year, and the evening isn't even over." As the board chair continued praising my work, I watched Rebecca's face grow paler. This was her world: high society events, influential people, professional recognition. She had always been the one to command attention at gatherings like this. But tonight, she was just another face in the crowd, while I stood at the center of acclaim. The final blow came when the evening's host took the stage for closing remarks. Before we conclude tonight's spectacular event, I want to recognize someone very special. The success of this evening is due in large part to the vision and dedication of our event planner, Miss Mia Chen. Mia, would you please join me on stage? As I walked toward the stage, passing directly by the table where David and Rebecca sat, I caught a glimpse of Rebecca's expression. It was the look of someone watching everything she had thought she wanted slip away from someone she had tried to destroy. On stage, as the host praised my work and the crowd applauded, I saw my life with perfect clarity. The dress I wore, my dream dress, chosen by me, paid for, with money I had earned through my own hard work, felt like armor made of starlight. The career I had built from scratch, the independence I had fought for, the self-respect I had reclaimed, these were infinitely more valuable than anything David and Rebecca had taken from me. In the months that followed, the ripple effects of that evening continued. The charity gala led to more high-profile clients, which led to features in wedding magazines, which led to a waiting list for my services that stretched months into the future. I hired my first employees and moved into a beautiful office space downtown. Rebecca's legal troubles escalated. The dress theft charges were just the beginning. Her professional misconduct investigation revealed years of fraudulent activity that resulted in criminal charges and the loss of her professional license. David's architectural firm declared bankruptcy, unable to recover from the scandal and economic pressures. Their marriage, built on the foundation of betrayal and sustained by the thrill of forbidden romance, crumbled under the weight of real-world consequence. The divorce was messy and public, with both parties trying to blame the other for their downfall. I learned about their struggles through mutual acquaintances, but I felt no satisfaction in their misery. If anything, their self-destruction felt like a cautionary tale about the corrosive power of deception and selfishness. 2 years after the night that should have been my wedding, I was planning someone else's celebration, a beautiful October ceremony at Rosewood Manor. As I watched the bride walk down the aisle in a gown that made her glow with happiness, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought me to this moment. The betrayal that had once felt like the end of my world had actually been the beginning of my real life. Rebecca had stolen my dress and my fiancé, but she had inadvertently given me something far more valuable: the opportunity to discover my own strength, to build something meaningful from scratch, to learn that my worth wasn't dependent on anyone else's choices. Standing in the back of the venue, watching another woman's dream wedding unfold flawlessly, thanks to my planning and attention to detail, I realized that karma hadn't just brought justice to those who had wronged me. It had brought me home to myself. The dress Rebecca had stolen was beautiful, but it had been chosen by someone who didn't yet know her own power. The life she had tried to claim was lovely, but it had belonged to someone who was still learning to dream big enough for her own potential. In losing what I thought I wanted, I had found what I actually needed: the unshakable knowledge that I could create beauty, bring joy to others, and build a life that was authentically mine. As the bride and groom exchanged vows, promising to support each other through whatever challenges lay ahead, I smiled and quietly thanked Rebecca for her betrayal. Without realizing it, she had given me the greatest gift of all: the chance to become who I was always meant to be. In the end, karma hadn't just broken her. It had rebuilt me, stronger and more beautiful than before.